So the night of the event, it was pouring rain, and it was very cold, and we had some high-tech equipment that really couldn't be left outside. So we used one of our large mobile sound production trucks that have windows towards the back, and they have a built-in generator. So we literally just rolled up. We just needed a parking space. Some press came. The local news media came down and took some video and some footage. And so here it was, a random Tuesday night at 7 o'clock at night in the winter. It's cold, it's raining. They didn't really know what was happening. So, we relayed the information to them, and once we were fully set up, people were starting to look, they see the truck, and then they looked over to the church, and they saw the image being projected.
Notre Dame des Canadiens is one of Worcester's oldest churches. However, the building currently sits abandoned, and now its fate is being decided by a private developer.
Preservation Worcester reached out to us to work together on this project, and they wanted to kind of coincide that with one of the meetings, the city council meetings that was going to be held, so people, when they were going into City Hall, they'd see the image projected onto the building.
Notre Dame des Canadiens Church was built in 1929 in downtown Worcester, and Worcester is a city of many different ethnicities. So this was the mother church for the French Canadian Church, located in downtown Worcester. And at one point around the Common there were 5 or 6 churches.
Notre Dame is now one of the only remaining churches from this migration period.
From the late 1800s until the early part of the 20th century, maybe up until the 1930s, Worcester was the recipient, if we could use that term, of tens of thousands of French Canadian immigrants that came here and settled, worked in the textile mills, in manufacturing. I grew up at Notre Dame Parish in Worcester. My family is part of that immigration that took place from Quebec, Canada, yes.
Believe it or not, we were hired about 25 years ago when they had a concert in the church to light up the altar area where they were going to be performing. I believe it was for a choir that came in from England. I was probably 5, 6, 7 years old, however old I was, a younger kid, so I wasn't really involved with the family business. I was old enough to carry wire from here to there sort of thing. But I was we had to bring a large follow spot up into the choir loft to highlight the people that were going to be singing. And the choir loft, in order to get to it, was a spiral staircase. And it's a very large church, so we were going up and up and up in circles, and I was getting dizzy. I remember going up and down those stairs, and it's one of my fondest memories of working in Notre Dame was running around the spiral staircase in the back. I never had a chance to go back in there, but it was very, very interesting when you're a little kid and you get to explore. It's something you don't usually get to do in a church. You usually go there, do your business, and you get out. But it was very, very interesting back then. So that was my little anecdote.
Despite the significance of the church to the community, over time, attendance fell drastically.
Even in the 1970s and the 80s, the parish was in a steady decline. The downtown area had shifted in terms of its population. The area that today where the public library is found, and beyond that to Seven Hills Plaza, was once a neighborhood. Urban renewal changed all of that.
With low attendance, the Roman Catholic Diocese of Worcester had little option but to close the building. The church was sold to the developer City Square in 2010.
When the church was first purchased, it was always intended to be part of the whole downtown redevelopment. But as time went on, we became increasingly concerned that buildings were going up around it, but nothing was happening to that.
The situation of Notre Dame is not new to Worcester. During the 1970s, many older buildings were torn down to make way for a new era.
Preservation Worcester was formed in 1969 in response to urban renewal when buildings were coming down, not only in Worcester but across the country.
Now, it appears that Notre Dame could share the same fate. In 2016, City Square decided they would move ahead with plans to replace the church with luxury apartments.
One of the things Preservation Worcester does, which is one of our landmark efforts, is we have a most endangered structures list. And we have a group of volunteers who look at buildings around the city, and we receive public input, and then we put together our list. I believe 2009 was the first year we had it on our most endangered structures list, and we've had it on several times since then as well.
From what I understand, they studied it to see what they could do to use it, and it was just financially unsound to start doing renovations and retrofitting it. It would just be more economical to tear it down and start over from scratch.
The building requires great attention. There are some very major structural issues that need to be addressed. And it's my understanding that it would require an enormous amount of money to rectify the structural problems with the building.
I think the value is determined on who purchases it and who wants to use it. For somebody from out of town or out of state to come in and they see a structure like this standing there, they don't see dollar signs if it's just sitting the way it is. But if they can build an office tower or apartments or something down there, then it might be a little bit different, and they can kind of maximize their profits. So, it's tough. I mean, I can understand both sides. I mean, my family owns a lot of property in Worcester, just the same, and you want to be able to develop it and maximize what you pay your taxes on every year, every quarter. And if it's just sitting there and you can't do anything with it, if you don't have tenants for it, if it's going to cost too much money to rehab it, then at some point you have to draw the line and say, there's a price tag to be put on this.
There's a sadness among those who were parishioners, whose parents supported the church, contributed to the church, were active in that church. I also think that there's also a sense of realism. There isn't enough of a community, or there wasn't enough of a community when the church closed, when the parish closed, to sustain it. It was just impossible.
Church attendance is down all over, and you hear about it on the news and so forth. If you don't have the attendance that is going to these churches, then there's nothing really that can be done. They're not making the income to run the church, and it's if they don't have the income to repair the church, then it does become a hazard at some point, and the decision has to be made. And it's unfortunate, but no matter what, I mean, there's nothing that can be done.
Despite the challenges, some community members believe the church could have a second life.
We believe that there's a great opportunity to take that church and make it into something that would benefit the growth downtown. Right now there are a lot of apartments going up downtown. There's a real push to get people to live downtown. And we think that a building like that could offer amenities to support and complement what's going downtown in the area. What we looked at was to put a brewery or maybe a couple breweries in the sanctuary area along with a restaurant. Repurposed older buildings are a real draw to people.
I think I would like to see the buildings repurposed. Worcester is a growing city, and in order to get people downtown, it would be nice to have some retail environment.
However, not all community members are united in their vision of what the church should become.
I think it would be safe to say, and I don't think that this is a leap, that for those who built the church and for those who remain still alive today, who supported that church for decades, to see that building, which was constructed, and let's be honest, it was constructed to be a house of worship, a house of prayer, to become something like a market or a restaurant or something like that would be unsettling to them. And I think it would also be safe to say that they would probably prefer that it be torn down than it go down that road. However, I think there was also room for another vocation for that building. If it could be used in some ways, rehabilitated, that it become a concert hall or part of a museum, or something to support the arts, or some kind of civic activity, and that would have to be defined in terms of what's appropriate. I don't think that would violate the sensibilities and the sensitivities of the people who built the church.
Despite the best efforts of the community to repurpose the building, the future of the church remains bleak.
Worcester is in what they call a renaissance. There's a lot of interest in developing the downtown area. And I think that has made it buildings more in peril, because all of a sudden people want to be downtown. An older building is challenging in some ways. New construction sometimes is less expensive. So I think there's more of a threat to demolition now than there has been in the past.
You're familiar with that with your childhood. It's sentimental. And the history is incredible with a lot of these buildings. Everything, a lot of things happen inside of these buildings. It's not just the architecture too. It's a lot of events, a lot of political events, a lot of concerts. Everybody has a great time, and you can look back and say, wow, when you bring your kids by there later on down in life, you can say, we were there. So, the history is a big thing when it comes to into the buildings.
People forget that Christianity existed for 300 years, longer than the United States has been in existence, as a domestic phenomenon. There were no buildings. Longer than the United States has been in existence, we existed without building. We just gathered. It was gathering people. It was relationship. So, I say, but who's to say that we at some point, some future time, not in my lifetime, probably not in your lifetime, it may revert to that again. That's okay. Why does it have to be buildings? I'm not tethered to the building.